the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. And while I'm still on my feet before the next order, I would like to recognize the presence of St. Mary's Mosolcho Primary School from Kitutu Chache constituency, Kisii County. And I think we have members present who went to that school. And secondly, I'd like to recognize the presence of Kagai Mixed Secondary School from Ware constituency, Kirinyaga County. Both are seated in the public gallery. Also seated in the speaker's gallery, I wish to recognize the presence of Kokwet Secondary School from Kipkelion West constituency, Kericho County. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, report on inquiry regarding sexual harassment of female workers in tea estates in Kericho County.
The Honorable Member for Suna North, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, I think you had 6 minutes left. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving...
But she can have 5.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, but I'm not a member for Suna North. I'm a member for Suba North. Madam Speaker, I thank God for working in mysterious ways. I'd actually wanted to speak earlier to the earlier motion on Bishop Oginde, who happened to have been my bishop for many years before I defected from NPC to SDA. But unfortunately, because the mover was called to respond, I was not able to speak. But I will speak, I will read a chapter in the Bible which applies to this motion, but which also applies to his. Matthew chapter 10, verse 16. Behold, I send you out as a sheep among wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents and as harmless as doves. I will not speak because of the rule of relevance, but I hope he remembers that. Madam Speaker, we were talking about the issue of sexual harassment of employees of the tea estate in Kericho, and I'd spoken a bit about it. And Madam Speaker, one of the things that I want to say, that it is actually a tragedy when we are talking about Kenyans who are helpless, who do not have the advantages that we have as members of parliament or as national leaders, that who are harassed, and had actually challenged the committee that we had hoped that they'd come up with stronger recommendations. And one of the recommendations that I'd hoped that the committee had come up with was to force the tea companies to come up with very clear sexual harassment policies. The other issue, Madam Speaker, that I wanted to speak to is that as a house, we need to call a spade and not a big spoon. When we talk about sexual harassment, if you look at the Sexual Offences Act, that is a very clear definition. But what I was hearing members referring to here are cases of sexual abuse, cases of rape. When you are talking about sexual harassment, we are actually cushioning acts which are very bad. And Madam Speaker, I know that, sometimes it's very difficult. I remember there was a case that we were told one time in church that there's a lady who was told that she should, if she doesn't speak, she was a poor lady and she was told if she doesn't say amen, she will be given a blanket. And so this woman kept sitting down, and every time the pastor said something she liked, she could not say amen. But at some point, she reached a level and she just said, amen anyway, blanket or no blanket. Madam Speaker, I've reached that level of blanket or no blanket, I'm going to say amen. And the amen I am going to say is this. I want to warn the men who are targeting national leaders with sex shaming, like the one we have seen of late. If we cannot protect women at the local level, and we are trying to, and us as women leaders, we are being targeted. And we want to be quiet because of 1, 2, 3 reasons. And please excuse me as women, because I know we had agreed that we will not talk about this. But blanket or no blanket, I will talk because I'm very offended. We cannot be treating women like trash. We cannot be treating women like rubbish. We cannot be treating women like they are the ones who came up with sex, like they are the ones who invented sex. And I want to tell women who are shaming and victimizing another woman who is already a victim, and you are trying to victimize and taking a moral high ground. Shame on you. Shame on you. I have seen one of my friends going and saying, because you have children, don't do this. Who told you that a woman posted photos of herself? You come here, post photos. Who hasn't had sex? Even I have had sex. Otherwise, why is my name is Mabona? But you cannot use, even today I've had. What is the big deal if I've had? And if you think there's a problem, report to the nearest police or report me to God. But what I want to say is, in this country, this must stop. This nonsense must stop. And the DCI must follow those, I don't even know what name to call them. I don't want to be abusive. But the DCI must follow those guys. Every time, there are so many women who have been followed. And every time you are being told, just keep quiet, otherwise you will not get a blanket. Blanket or not blanket, amen. I am going to say it. You are not going to harass women. I don't care whether you are in UDA. I don't care whether you are in ODM. When it is an issue of women, my party becomes a woman. When it's an issue of women, my party becomes a woman. Because what is done to another woman will be done to me. And Madam Speaker, the issue of morality is a very personal issue. Whether somebody decides they want to get out of their marriage, we are all answerable to God. So let us not bring issues of somebody to ourselves. Let that be our own issue. But what somebody has done in her privacy, why are you bringing for us here in public? I'm sure even if we ask them, if we were to take videos of Ichungwa yesterday, we might also see new styles that we didn't see in the other videos. If you were to show the other men who are here doing their own things. Why are we making it a women issue like we are the one who created sex in this country? Honestly, I was so offended I could not even stay in this house yesterday, Madam Speaker. What nonsense is this? And we are going to amend our laws. We are going to amend our laws and make stricter penalties. If we have to bring, I don't support the death penalty. I don't support the death penalty. I wish I was, but if I was, I would have actually said, bring the death.
Proceed, we are extending your time by another 3 minutes.
Thank you. If I was capable, I would have actually brought the death. If I was a supporter of the death penalty, I would have actually supported the death penalty on people like that. But because I don't support the death penalty, Madam Speaker, I think we need to enhance the sentences to life for people like that. And please, if you're here and you want to, you want to stand here and give us your moral high ground, we all don't know what you do in your private lives. It's only God who knows what you do. And there are some of us who may be there, perhaps the ones who are quiet are the ones who are moral than the rest of us who are noisy. So please, and I want to urge you, behind that person you are harassing, behind that person there is a human being. You do not understand what that person is going through. I happen to know some of those people at a very close level. And their lives and their children's lives have been destroyed. At least if you are not bothered about that person, have mercy on their children. Unless you are the devil incarnate. Idiots. I mean, I'm sorry, I withdraw that. I withdraw that, Madam Speaker. But it's really offensive. Why would you do that? Honestly, why would you do something like that? We are so morally bereft, you think you are better than the person that you are sharing. The fact that you can share that before people. Even if I take the photo and it is mine. Right now, if I have sex with my husband, I take a photo. There is nothing wrong. There is no law against it. The problem is you who is sharing my photo. Because I'm very sure I'm not the one who shared those photos. So why are you sharing my photo? Even in this country, the Constitution ensures the right to privacy. So please, you men here, and also let me talk to my fellow women. You have a right to relate with whoever you want with. And you have a right to have sex. But the same verse I am giving Honorable Bishop Oginde, let me read it for you. Matthew chapter 10, verse 16. Behold, I send you out as a sheep among wolves. I'm sending you as a sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as wise as serpents and as harmless as doves. Know that even if somebody is your colleague here and they are looking at you and smiling and giving you winks and kisses, that is a wolf. So be mindful about what you do or what you say. In Jesus' name I pray.
Thank you. The Honorable, yes, we'll give you 2 minutes because you're going before somebody else. That's okay. Proceed, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You know, Honorable Speaker, I never wanted to interrupt the Honorable Millie, especially when she mentioned me and photos. And she knows we don't take photos. Millie knows. We have no time for photos. I know we have been around here for some time with Honorable Millie Odhiambo, and she knows we have never taken a photograph. But I want to agree with Honorable Millie, Honorable Speaker, the harassment of women, and I say this as a father, I have mentioned here before, I am a father to girls. And therefore, when you touch women, I put my own children, my own mother, my own wife in that position. And Honorable Speaker, it does not matter whether it is those things that Millie is alluding to that we have seen on social media, or it is the harassment that we have witnessed of ladies and it's not just tea estates in Kericho. It is even in people's homes where women are working, in people's farms, in companies here in industrial area where women become very vulnerable. And even in institutions like Parliament, Honorable Speaker, where women in an endeavor to rise through the ranks are being harassed left, right, and center. And even members of Parliament, Honorable Speaker. I was just speaking to a lady member of Parliament this afternoon, and she was telling me she feels like never running for an elective seat again because of the harassment on social media. And I was telling her, my sister, just let whatever is posted on social media, first, be like me, don't read. And when you read, tell them what they want to hear. Because nobody has a monopoly to insults. Nobody should harass you because you are a lady. And I believe equally, nobody should harass me because I'm a politician. Millie, you call me an idiot on social media, I will answer you and tell you you're a bigger one. Of course, Millie will never call me that. Other than things she said here in just the other day, and she told me, I just wanted you to trend. And I did, by the way. Thank you. But she knows we know each other, me and her. And that's why I asserted that you will never find photographs. Because, again, for a man who is doing those things, taking photographs, where do you even find that time for a man? You must be ashamed of yourself. And I wish, like Honorable Millie, we would get to know what men those are. Because those are not men. They are not even babies. Those are the LGBTQ something. Because you should be busy. You should not be taking photographs. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. But let me just conclude, because I don't want to delve into those issues, Honorable Speaker, that the harassment of women in workplaces, let me not say office places, because it is everywhere from the tea estates, Honorable Speaker, is something that labor organizations, the Ministry of Labor, our labor unions must take a keen interest in. And I want to encourage women leaders to take up positions even in unions, labor unions. We have made labor unions, almost all of them, even those in the tea estates, dock workers everywhere, NAT, Kupet, I only see men. I want to encourage our women leaders in this country to take up even leadership positions within our labor unions so that they are able to speak on behalf of women. But, Honorable Speaker, we must condemn in the strongest words possible and support this report on the harassment of female workers in tea estates. And let me say, Honorable Speaker, it is not only in tea estates in Kericho, even in Kisii, in Meru, everywhere you find tea estates, women become very vulnerable. And because women are hardworking and they have to keep those jobs to fend for their families. They feel vulnerable, Honorable Speaker, and imagine that they must give in to those men who are harassing them for them to keep their jobs and be able to fend for their families. But we must be there to speak on their behalf and protect them. Because if we do not protect those in tier states today, Honorable Speaker, tomorrow it shall be those in our families, and even us here. You have seen, as Honorable Millie has said, even women leaders are being harassed. But I want to assure Honorable Millie, I will protect you always. And you will never find a photo anywhere. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Busia County, Honorable Catherine Omayo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is indeed appalling to take a matter so serious like this that has made somebody lose maybe her job for saying no in some occasions. I think our law sometimes can be a little silly, because a lady described to me one time when she was raped, she rushed to a police station to report. And the policeman who was at the desk was asking her, how did he begin? How did it start? And look how you are dressed. Even you invited. Instead of feeling and reaching that level of the person who is hurt, emotionally, they are normally drained. So we need all women anywhere in this world to be protected and not to leave them to wallow in the miasma of despair. I really pity this case of Kericho workers. Wherever it has reached, we should not even be discussing. These people are known. These people are on record. They have been named. The women who have complained are still hurting. Why it is progressive, I do not know. It should have happened because the women are there and they are ready to give evidence anytime. So the long bureaucracy in the corridors of law should be shortened when cases like this happen. I'm a woman who has twins, and when my girls come and say a man has touched me here and there, sexuality is not really just being under blankets. It is also the words that people who are badly cultured out there use. Words like ugly, oh, not sexy, oh, let me see if you are good enough. Things like those. Those are examples of people who are misogynistic. So I think in Kenya we have come a long way where men and women should be sensitive enough how to treat each other anywhere, whether in a public office or private. And I should not be desperate to have a job if I have merit, if I have the experience. So anywhere, even county offices, we have had many women begging to be nominated, begging to be promoted, because they beg through other means of interview. When I say through other means, I think somebody understands here. So let the women get the jobs on merit, let them be promoted on merit, and not because they have put down their pants, removed their zips for a man for those favors. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Siaya County, Christine Ombaka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I'd like to air my views on this matter. It's a grave matter that has been there for years, and there's never been any solution to this problem. Women suffer a lot. A lot of them are quiet, a lot of them are silent because they feel ashamed, because they don't get any help, and so they are dying in their hearts with the harassment that they go through. Harassment starts with just staring at a woman, just staring. It makes you so uncomfortable. That is sexual harassment. Somebody just watching you Everywhere you go, his eyes are on you, touching you, somebody winking at you. All these are harassment. Maybe the people who do this, the men who do this, may not realize how harassing it is. But that is enough to harass a woman. Just stare, just touch her, just wink at her. Those are harassment. And we need to know the definition of sexual harassment and sexual abuse. The women who are abused, who are raped, can't even talk because the trauma is too high. The embarrassment is so high. Our society is such that women are seen as sex objects, that whatever a woman wants from you, you must do something first. She must offer some favors. She wants a job, she must sleep with you. She wants promotion, she must sleep with you. Everything is sleeping, sleeping, sleeping. And women are harassed. And as you're harassed, again, it is you who are victimized. They don't even think that a man actually is at fault, that the man is the perpetrator of some of these vices. But they don't think that is the case. They tend to turn around and say that women are the ones who are exposing themselves to some of these vices. It's not true. Women are simply harassed. Women are so helpless. They don't know where to report. And if they do, they don't even receive any help. So my contribution here is that please let's teach our society. Let us teach everyone, both men and women, that women should be respected just like we respect the men. Let there be no harassment. And something that has recently came, the modern way of communication, social media, there's got to be some break into this. It's just not even talking about a woman. Pictures are created. There is what they call the one that, Photoshop. Your face emerges and you don't know. And that is somebody's action. And somebody just does a Photoshop and it's supposed to be you. Then the whole world start talking about you. It's terrible. Even as politicians, we campaign negatively against women. And they're all talking about sexual harassment. Women are harassed even politically. When we go to campaign against fellow men, we are just trying to contest, and it's an innocent thing. You win, and I go home when you beat me at it. But the men will take it seriously and abuse you sexually, will make you feel so small that you don't deserve that seat, but all what they're talking about you is just sex, sex, sex. That you are immoral, that you are a prostitute, that you are this and that. I think the image of women has gone down because the men don't seem to appreciate the good part of the women. Please have some respect for women and know that human rights, women's rights are also human rights. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
The Honorable Member for Moyale, Honorable Guyo Jaldeza.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me a chance to contribute to this motion. I do support the committee report on sexual violence against women, be it in Kericho, be it in women who are selling fish around Lake Victoria, because the men who go fishing will come to give the fish to the women at a price, and usually the price is sexual. The women who are working in Kibera, working in industrial area in Kibera, they cannot be given work if they do not give sexual favors to the people, the ones who supervise them. Unfortunately, we talk about women, but I want us to understand one thing. There's a difference between sex and gender. Sex is biological. It's genetic makeup of individuals. There are others called gender, which is socially constructed. The recent marriage which was announced in American broadcaster, the man who was married by another man, and he was a woman. And the same happens on the other side, that people will want to behave in a certain way because they think socially they want to be, but they cannot change their sex. Sexual violence can happen to boys and girls, can happen to men and women. And whatever case it is, it should be condemned and it should not be allowed. There are many forms of harassment. It's not just physical, it's not just sexual. It is even psychological. Women, unfortunately, when they're seeking elective position, usually the main point of attack is below the waist line. Women are attacked, but so long as they know that it is what is in the head that matters and not what is below the knee, below the waist and above the knee, they should be able to survive the fight. And we congratulate all the women who have fought single-man seat and survived in this place. When women are attacked and they are harassed sexually, it causes a lot of psychological illness. It causes even other mental and health issues. It causes an unwanted pregnancy, STIs, including HIV/AIDS. They are not protected. If we want to stop this nonsense, as a country, we need to see how we can empower the women. We need to empower the women so that they can be what they are and not pets to be played around with. The women's rights is human right, and it must be upheld. And we need to come up with policies to empower the women so that women anywhere in the country are not disadvantaged unfairly. With those few comments, I say, as a man, women's rights is human right, and women should be prevented or protected from any form of violence, including things like female genital mutilation. There are all forms of violence against women, and we want the House to come up with serious issues. I know the Sexual Act of 2006 by Njoki Ndungu is there, but it's not enough to protect the women, and it has not protected, and we need to find out ways of protecting, especially the KEWOPA team. KEWOPA should find out how best to come up with moves to empower the women and protect them. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Sirisia, Honorable John Waluke. Member is absent. The Honorable nominated member, Honorable Bishop Jackson Kosgei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I take this opportunity also to support the report of the committee and stand with the women of Kericho and other women of Kenya on this subject of harassment, sexual harassment. Madam Speaker, I think it is high time we relook at our laws that governs these particular offenses, and with the coming of technology and the use of social media, that we need to look at our laws and see where to improve. One, whether, as one of the members contributed earlier, that we need to improve the penalties and also vigilance on it. These are just a group of people, a small number. We don't say all the society is harassing women, but we are witnessing cases of harassment. Number two, as one of the members have put it, we need to see an increased empowerment process in terms of job securing in our country to make sure that women don't have to lose their dignity while seeking for a job at what So there could be something that can be done as a society. Otherwise, this afternoon we condemn any form of harassment, whether we are just ashamed of the somebody posting a picture of one of the honorable members or anybody else in this country. This is terrible, really. I don't think it is acceptable even in our own traditions and cultures. We condemn it from the floor of this House, and we ask Kenyans to respect each other with dignity and avoid abuse of privilege of relations. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Kirinyaga County, Honorable Njeri Maina, also known as Gashiri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand in support of this motion, Madam Speaker, and I want to request the mover of this motion to also consider amending this motion so that we can widen the scope and add sexual abuse, rape, defilement, because those are things that are plaguing women every day, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, sexual harassment and power has a correlation, Madam Speaker. People are put in positions of power so that they can serve the people that are supposed or that are put in place. And Madam Speaker, it is not only in Kericho, Tea Estates, Madam Speaker. This is happening across the nation in various sectors, Madam Speaker. Before I was elected to come to this House, Madam Speaker, I was a practicing advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And I remember there was a discussion even on the social platforms about the sexual harassment of young lawyers, young female lawyers in the legal fraternity, Madam Speaker. I have also been a recording artist, Madam Speaker. It is also very rampant in the music industry, Madam Speaker. If you recall, in the USA, we had the Me Too movement, Madam Speaker, where women were coming out and giving their stories about the sexual abuse and harassment by moguls in the film and music industry in the USA, Madam Speaker. This is a thing that we must address, Madam Speaker. We have very progressive laws, Madam Speaker. We have the Sexual Offences Act. We have the Computer and Cyber Crimes Act, Madam Speaker. We have the National Integration Laws, Madam Speaker. And all these, and the Penal Code, Madam Speaker. But when it comes to implementation of the law, when it comes to finding the evidence, when it comes to ensuring that the culprits are held liable, Madam Speaker, we miss the big picture in protecting the women of this nation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me to expound a bit further and delve into the now developing out of social media and AI platforms where women are cyberbullied, platforms where families are broken apart, platforms where people are scarred forever, Madam Speaker. And I want to call and bring to the attention of this House, Madam Speaker, and the organization of KEWOPA. We have to stand firm. We have to take the lead in protecting the women of this nation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am aware that a lot of these women are unable to come out, Madam Speaker. They're unable to speak about it because of the stigma around the issue, Madam Speaker. People tell you, let us be harsh about it. Do not come forward because then people will judge you about it. But it has happened to many women, Madam Speaker. It is happening sometimes even to women in churches who are serving. Men of the cloth, Madam Speaker. We have a nation that has decided that women are to be taken advantage of. And for eons, Madam Speaker, women have suffered, Madam Speaker. I think the biggest sin that women seem to commit is hunger for anything. Hunger for sex, Madam Speaker. It is a natural thing, Madam Speaker. But then I do not understand why, when it comes to women, Madam Speaker, they have to pay a high cost for it. Madam Speaker, I want to say, and say this with authority, that women have a right to have sex in their privacy, and they will have it on their own terms, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Kibagedi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to support the report, but I would wish that the report goes beyond just the Kericho tea farms. And as we look at amending the laws, even where I come from, when markets are complete in terms of construction, when women are vying to try and get stalls in those markets, most of the leadership in the markets, not just in Kisii or Kitutu Chache South, even here in the city, the women are forced to give sexual favors for them to be able to get stalls in those markets, Madam Speaker. The other thing that I know was spoken about some time back, Madam Speaker, is sexual harassment in the universities, where lady students are forced by lecturers to sleep with the lecturers for them to be able to get, for them to pass their exams, even when they are able to pass without giving such favors. These are areas that we need to look at. And beyond that, we also need to look at the cyber crimes laws, so that we are able to deal with people who spread these particular videos and photos of our women because they haven't been able to extort them of the monies they intended to. Beyond that, Madam Speaker, I would like, Madam Speaker, my school was recognized, St. Mary's Mosocho, where I went to school, that are in the public gallery. I'm happy that this school is here. This school, Madam Speaker, is a center of excellence in Kisii County. It is the leading school. In the 90s, it used to be the #1 school in the country. We used to compete with the Olympic school in Kibra. And I'm happy that these wonderful young men have come here to be inspired so that they may work hard and make it to this house. I'm happy to see Sister Matilda and the rest of the teaching staff that have come with a young men, and I'm glad that they have managed to sit through this particular debate. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Kibagedi. The Honorable Naomi Wako.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important debate on sexual harassment at workplace. As I also welcome the students who are here with us, and also encourage them to work very hard and study hard, because it is through their hard work and excelling in their exams they'll be able to have a better life that will give them full satisfaction. Madam Speaker, the issue of sexual harassment is becoming a tradition in our society today. Women have gone through this, and as a result of that, many women have been infected, even with diseases. Many have been raped, and some of them, because of the shame and embarrassment, have even gone through abortion because they are not fully ready even to carry a baby. Young girls, Madam Speaker, today, teenage pregnancy in our country is escalating every year. And the people who have done this are either the school teachers or close relatives or neighbors. Most of the time, they are known, but no action is taken. And so slowly by slowly, this is becoming a tradition in our country. That is not right. And I stand to support this by saying that women are created by God in his own image, just as men are created, and they need to be respected. Madam Speaker, anybody who wants to bring a woman down brings the issue of sex. And sexual matters are quite private. But especially for women in power, this has become a bargaining power, whereby a man can take a woman and try to tarnish her image. And because of the poverty level in our country, many women are compromised. They have no option, but sometimes they have to give in. Even when they get into it without their will, then they have to live with the shame for the rest of their life. And the question I have today is, when people talk of sex in regards to a woman, it becomes an embarrassment. It becomes something that people refer to in a way of shame and something that is not exciting. But when they talk of a man and sexual behavior and all these other things, it becomes a pride for a man. And in fact, the men become heroes. So why would men be glorified in doing that and women are embarrassed and ashamed, and most of the time it is working to their disadvantage? Madam Speaker, it is high time that as a country we take care of our girls in schools because they are exploited sexually. We take care of our girls in colleges because in order for them to pass exams, the professors, the lecturers take advantage of them. And it is high time for us to say enough is enough. And our girls need to stand up and say no, no to this bad behavior and evil practice. Madam Speaker, our society is losing focus. And society is everything. When we embarrass women, when we harass women, just because of the poverty level they are in, just because a woman is a single mother and bringing up her child on her own, Madam Speaker, this will bring a lot of curse to our nation. Let me just touch on the border issue. Women are harassed everywhere, even in the Ubers.
Please give her a minute. 1 minute, please.
Women are harassed in offices, they are harassed in schools, they are harassed even in parliament, they are harassed everywhere. And even on the borders, because I understand our young girls, when they cannot pay for their transport to school, they have to be harassed. Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Marsabit shall be heard in silence. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for protecting me, Madam Speaker. And I want to say that harassing women for sex or sexually will not help this country, but it will only bring a lot of disadvantages to us. We need to overcome it as a country and come up with measures that will control this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well spoken, Member for Marsabit. So now the Honorable Member for Kadhiani. You may have your chance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to also make my contribution on this issue of sexual harassment in Kericho tea estates. And first, I want to thank the committee for an excellent report. Secondly, I want to thank the media for highlighting this issue, Madam Speaker, because BBC really did highlight this issue. Madam Speaker, if you look at, my big concern is when you look at the observations by the committee itself. One of the things that the committee says is that investigations by DCI into the allegations are progressing very slowly. In fact, I think, Madam Speaker, that's a veiled way of saying that there are no investigations that were even going on. Madam Speaker, secondly, they say that the 4 persons that were named in the documentary as perpetrators had not been arrested nor even charged in any court of law. So, Madam Speaker, it means that even though there was an expose, our investigating authorities did not bother to maybe go and address this matter. And from the committee's report, there is fear that maybe these tea workers that were harassed are probably not going to get justice. Madam Speaker, I want to begin by saying that those in authority must be sure to take responsibility, take action against the perpetrators. It is very, very important. Nevertheless, Madam Speaker, it's important to note that women in other sectors, for example, secretaries in offices, tea girls, house girls, are also harassed. So it's not just the tea workers. A lot of women are harassed in their places of work. And that, of course, Madam Speaker, has to do with those that are in authority, because those that can harass them are the people in authority. Madam Speaker, that also takes me to also point out that there are also men that are hustlers that are at the low cadre that have also got to give favors to also be employed, sometimes also to get promotions. So there are also men, young men, that are harassed by their female employers, and sometimes, Madam Speaker, unfortunately, by their male employers. So, Madam Speaker, this is really an issue that we need to address, and employers have to have a moral authority and make sure that they also hold their officers to respect. Madam Speaker, maybe one of the solutions that we need to think about is the possibility of introducing some of these into our education system, so that those that go through the education system in Kenya can understand when they are being harassed. I watched a clip on social media of a leader I think it was in Tanzania, that was teaching the children what exactly to avoid, where if they are touched in certain places, they should be able to quickly go and report. Because these things start at an early age. Some of these perpetrators are people that have been able to do this over the years. So if we can be able to teach our children to be able to avoid this, then we'll probably be able to start solving it. Madam Speaker, the Computer and Cyber Crimes Act prohibits the misuse of gadgets, for example, mobile phones. And Madam Speaker, I want to again say that the victims of this kind of crime, of circulating, sexual, escapades on social media, is not only women. I remember the former deputy governor of one of our counties was a victim. In fact, he was shown naked on these social media gadgets, and he was being harassed. Actually, there were just people trying to extort money. We have seen a former member of parliament, actually, I think 2, whose also clip circulated. And now currently we have seen another one that is being purported to belong to maybe one of our leaders in the country. Madam Speaker, I think we have to be careful. With artificial intelligence, the world is reaching a point where even someone can tape you and be able to use that short clip and actually copy your voice and can actually present an audio that shows that it is you spoke. And it's also going to happen with video. So going into the future, there's going to be a very serious problem, because people will actually be involved in sexual escapades that they did not participate in, just because they have photographs of these people and they have their audios. So, Madam Speaker, we have to be careful. But as a country, Madam Speaker, those of us that are so quick to circulate those videos and to watch those videos, I want to say we are becoming a sick society. We must also understand that we must respect people's privacy. When you find people watching such things and sharing them, those are perverts, and those are people that have no space in this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well spoken. The Honorable Rebecca Tonke.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Speaker. Sorry, my mic is misbehaving. Madam Speaker, I also rise to contribute on this motion on the way the sexual harassment in our workplaces. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Honorable Beatrice Kemei and her committee for bringing this motion, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's not only the women in Kericho T that are suffering, but Madam Speaker, this issue of sexual harassment is all over in our workplaces. Madam Speaker, the women are suffering. And when these women are suffering, Madam Speaker, this blocks them to take leadership positions. Because when you are harassed in your workplace, Madam Speaker, you actually hardly go to the office because you fear to appear there, because at times when you go there, you fear to face the harasser. Madam Speaker, it is time that the government and the law must be enforced so that the women are protected. Madam Speaker, looking at this sexual harassment, you know, it comes in many forms, as just like one of my colleagues said. Sometimes when you greet a man, some of the men even press your hand very hard. You know, that is sexual harassment, Madam Speaker. And it is really harasses one until you feel like, should you shake this man's hand the next time you meet him? Madam Speaker, sexual harassment causes mental depression. And you become depressed and stressed. And Madam Speaker, every time you want to go to work, you are thinking of the person you are going to meet who holds authority. And Madam Speaker, when you get there, when you think of meeting that man in the morning who is supposed to allocate you duties, Madam Speaker, you are depressed. So even sleeping at night becomes a nightmare because you fear meeting your harasser. Madam Speaker, looking at what is happening, even all over the world, women are judged harshly. When something happens like what has been happening, just like our colleague said, you know, women are often judged so harshly. When a woman is seen by men or anybody, even in the society, when these videos circulate, like the one we saw recently, Madam Speaker, people do not judge the man who is circulating that harshly, but the woman is judged harshly, and yet this thing took two people to do that. Madam Speaker, I think it's time that people know that women are also, they are human beings, they have feelings, and they have a right to sex. Therefore, nobody should be circulating this if it happens, because that is still harassment. Madam Speaker, I do not want to dwell on that, because as women, some of these issues really gives us a lot of stress, and we feel so bitter that we do not have something to do. And as Honorable Millie has said, that we should be aware of these people. And women, colleagues, friends, and even women out there, I want to advise you to be careful. And as the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 15 says, beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. Madam Speaker, sometimes we get people who come to us as women, especially women who are in leadership. They come in very good and lovely words, but Madam Speaker, they have wrong and ill motives. Fellow women, it's time to be careful. It's time to protect your own image. Know who is coming to you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Rebecca. Honorable members, I would like to recognize, seated in the public gallery, AIC Chebisas Boys High School from Moiben constituency in Uasin Gishu County. You are welcome to the National Assembly. Honorable members, the next opportunity goes to the Honorable Timothy Wanyonyi, member for Westlands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance also to speak on this report by the committee. Madam Speaker, sexual harassment anywhere, whether at workplace, whether at home, anywhere, Madam Speaker, is primitive and is sickening. The people who do this, Madam Speaker, they misuse and abuse their authority over the people they are managing. And these are people who use any small opportunity to exploit the people who are junior to them. And Madam Speaker, it is not just about women, it's also about men. There are men who are also harassed. But mostly, those who suffer the most are women. The stigma is very high. And I would like to say, Madam Speaker, that this should be made something that should be very painful. And people who are doing that, it doesn't matter which rank, which position you hold in any office, it should be made punishable. And we should also encourage those who are harassed to report these things without fear so that it is dealt with. And we should also make our police service, maybe create a special unit to just be addressing these issues, because most of them don't understand when people call to report. They try to make a joke out of it. Madam Speaker, the other thing is that in this era of social media, we are parading ourselves. Sometimes we make ourselves, put ourselves so much in the public that you are exposing yourself to anything and everything. And some of these young fellows, and or not even young fellows, even people, we've seen even our former governor used to post so many things in the social media. And you'll find yourself, Madam Speaker, also in that position. I don't know whom you'll complain to, because you have put yourself in such a way that those people who are accessing you, just make sure that don't allow cameras in your privacy. Don't allow pictures when you are doing your private thing. Even when you are eating, don't take pictures. Just keep the cameras away. These are some of the things that are being exploited, Madam Speaker, and we bring it up so that we must preserve our personal dignity. We must preserve some of the things that we do that make us human. So, Madam Speaker, I believe that this motion is something that we must take it very seriously as a society, and it also speaks a lot about our values. The values have really changed. That people, even in church, you see people are doing funny things. They are seated there, even seated in a very awkward position, and they're just allowing cameras to roll around them. And then they post those things in the social media. So we just, I don't know, what is it really that we want to see? As Africans, we believe that what you want, the sweetest thing is that is hidden. It's not that what is so exposed. The good thing is that you must work for it. Even called, Madam Speaker, you want for it, you have to dig down in the rock, to break that rock, and then put it around the fire to make it valuable. So, as we want also, I want that thing that I'll labor to get there, not just which is just already exposed to me. I'll lose appetite, maybe before I get there. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, what was circulating in the social media was sickening, and I just think, Madam Speaker, that those people who have done that, they have lacked self-respect. They have no respect for themselves and even the people around them, including their own family. As fathers and husbands and sons, we must protect the dignity of our women at all times, at any place and anywhere, Madam Speaker. Thank you for giving me a chance to contribute. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also contribute to this motion on sexual harassment. I rise on behalf of the women of Moiben constituency, where I come from. Madam Speaker, this age-old practice where women face discriminatory behavior because of their gender should come to an end in Kenya. This sexual harassment business has been an age-old problem to women in all spaces, in places of work, in many spaces, in their marriages, in political spaces, and so on. The society should stop harassing women. And most of the women who are harassed, for example, are at the lower cadre of life where they are trying to fend for their children. Sometimes they are forced to accept because they don't have an option. What is said in Kiswahili, kubali yaishe. That's what they normally say, kubali yaishe, because they just want to finish with the business so that they can get what they can get, so that they can go back and fend for their children. It is very embarrassing and it is very painful. Madam Speaker, sir, I want to encourage, sorry, Madam Speaker. Sorry. Madam Speaker, I want to encourage our men and women that when they come across such images, they should delete in the social media. They shouldn't allow it to move to the next level because, yes, thank you, Honorable Millie, it's a crime. And when you forward it to somebody else, you are giving it power. You are empowering the person who originated it. And I want to say this to our fellow men. I think it is, from my culture, it is an abomination to see the nakedness of a woman, and more so a mother. When you see the nakedness of a mother who is not your wife or your friend, or, I mean, you are supposed to get blind. That's what my culture says. So I can say, categorically say that those who are proliferating this problem, those who are transporting these images from one point to another, may they get blind, as my sister said, and they should never see light again, so that they will not be able to pass that information. And Madam Speaker, even in political spaces, women have suffered the most, especially those who have the courage to vie for political seats in Kenya. They face so many forms of discrimination. So many bad things are said about them. How I wish that if men and women are to compete in any space, let the competition be very fair and let everyone given an opportunity without using terrible words against women. Madam Speaker, I want to say, I want to follow up on what has just been said about the most recent photo about a woman leader in Kenya, that we condemn it with the strongest terms. And it is so bad that even our own fellow women are also talking badly about it. I mean, morality is an individualistic, it's an individual's thing. It is in your own heart. And as it has been said, it is God alone who knows what is good or what is bad. Can we stop making judgments or passing judgments against our fellow women as if those of us who are making those judgments are very perfect? Let us not allow our own women colleagues to suffer as we wait and see. Let us come up, all of us, and stand up and speak out against these fights so that our society, women in our society, get
Thank you very much. Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to recognize Seated in the Speaker's Gallery, AIC Philemon Chelegat girls from Baringo Central in Baringo County. And seated in the public gallery, St. John Paul II Educational Center, Moranga, from Mathioya constituency in Moranga County. You are welcome to the National Assembly. Honorable members, the next opportunity goes to the member for Kangundo, the Honorable Fabian Muli.
Thank you very much, Madam Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to add my voice on this report. Honorable Speaker, I declare my local stand before I go ahead. I was part of the team which visited the James Finley and the Katerina farm in Kericho. Honorable Madam Speaker, we went to the farm. Actually, when you go to that farm, you get, it is a population of almost 100,000 people living 80,000 acres, which look to be not within the Kenyan jurisdiction. The lifestyle, and you compare the lifestyle of people living there, and this life we are living here, look like still enclosed place. So the place and the words we found in the expose of BBC, the people mentioned it is true. They exist. The people mentioned in the report, they are there. They used to be the senior managers, and some are still the senior managers of these tea farms, and they're still working there. About Madam Speaker, we went further when we were doing interrogation and inquiry of this report. We found that actually the story is not about the sex only. The issue is to bring fear amongst the workers who are working there. The women being raped, they are the wives of some guys working there as stewards or working maybe as junior tea plantation. They are also sisters of men who are working there. So the issue on that farm should not be treated like another issue of sexual abuse. So, honorable members, I'm arguing you through the speaker. The report we have from this farm, the people living in this farm, they are still not yet gone to 1963. They are behind independence of this country. Even the workers who are working there, they're in fear and trauma. You cannot face your supervisors direct with your eyes. We also found that not only the government officials like security team, they cannot assess the farm. They can only meet the senior managers of the farm, but they are not able to assess the work of that farm. So there's a very big disconnect within the public administrations and the people working there. The people who are working there, we need to understand that they are school inside. Also, their kids are working there. All the senior managers, they go ahead by raping those kids. The people are traumatized and they are very scared to talk about it because they are going to lose the work. Again, you get now, when they tell us, they have the stories about the sexual report, which they say they have tried to give people they are not able to report. If you report any sexual abuse, the workers told us, is the time you lose your work. So it is a way of managing these people to live with fear in those society, in those tea plantations. Also, the Minister of Labor, the officer who is in charge of Kericho County, is only one person. Just imagine these two farms, they have almost 100,000 workers, where we have only one officer for labor who cannot even assess them. The information he gets through the management. Again, in the same farm, you get the managers and the workers. There is very big disconnect. The workers are not able to assess the offices. So by telling us they have examined the gender offices in the police station, these people, they are living within that society. By the time you are leaving those tea farm, you need to have permission to leave. That tea farm, you live with your wife, you live with your kids. So you are not supposed to assess the police outside to go to report those sports happening for sexual abuses. So these people, they cannot have an opportunity to express their rights within those police stations. So, Honorable Madam Speaker, these farms, the kind of pay given to the workers, it is a way to give subcontract. The subcontractors given the work to work there, they are the managers of the company. Again, it's another way to milk the money from the directors who don't sit in this country. So you get the workers are being misused by the fellow Kenyans. Then the other thing is about the culture. When we went ahead meet the security department, they say there is a culture in that area. People cannot report about the sex. The sex matters are treated private, and that's why you see we have found that it is true, it is happening in those tea farms. Thank you very much, Madam Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Donya Doris, member for Kisii County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to comment on the issue of the you have not come to government offices when employees are maybe supposed to go for a trip. The person in charge will always want to be accompanied by ladies who compromise. He will always want his girlfriends to accompany him. This thing is very common. I'm even wishing we have annual reports where we celebrate or we give statements through the suggestion box at various public and private offices to know what's ailing the workers. We should not speak and go. We must be doers. When we celebrate Madaraka Day, Mashujaa Day, during Labor Day, when we are celebrating the plight of workers, we should have this suggestion box telling us what is eating the workers. And this is when, Madam Speaker, you will learn that workers are really suffering, because the trips are very normal for workers to visit Mombasa or even to go outside the country. When these visits are taking course, that is when the women, mostly women, are compromised. If you are not going with so-and-so and you will not be maybe sleeping with him, you will not go for that trip. Or if you go for that trip and you don't agree to what your boss is saying, next time you will not be permitted. You won't be allowed. And you know very well, per diems are very gracious to all of us. One will always want to have them apart from the normal thing that people go maybe for work. So let's take this thing serious. If it happens so, the culprits will fear, and this thing will end. That I can tell you, Madam Speaker. And lastly, on the issue of sharing of videos and demeaning women, it's so surprising that most of the people, we are never approached by fellow women for sex or love matters. We are always approached by our dear men. And we wonder why they take the sweet moment to be a disaster to the woman. We allow them. We accept the advances that they make to us. All of a sudden, it's on social media. And the people who share these clips more are men. Like the clips that is circulating, you can see by yourself, the clothes that are being worn by the one being suggested to be the one are totally different. But people will convince you, no, this is the same person, it's the same picture, just because they want to bring down someone. Let's be serious. Let's be doers and not talkers, so that we can, for once, deal with this issue of sexual harassment in our private and public sector. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Member for Kisii. The Honorable Cynthia Muge, Member for Nandi County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion.
I want to appreciate the Committee on Labor for having done a very good job when they went for the field visit in Kericho, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to thank the media that actually brought the whole story into the limelight. Honorable Speaker, whatever is happening in this country, and not just in the multinationals or in the tea estates in Kericho, is very bad, Honorable Speaker. This particular act of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, exists in every part of this community and society in Kenya. It exists, Honorable Speaker, in the churches. I know it looks and sounds awkward, Honorable Speaker, when someone says sexual harassment exists in the church. It does exist in the church, Honorable Speaker. You have seen many churches that call themselves churches. I am not sure whether they are really churches, Honorable Speaker, that actually tell women that now that you do not have the ability to be able to get children, you can come to my church, and me, the pastor or the bishop, can be able to do this, and you can be able to get children, Honorable Speaker. That is exploitation, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is something that is happening in our schools. It is happening in the primary schools. And Honorable Speaker, I remember when I was growing up, while we had a very powerful politician in this country, Honorable Speaker, there was a serious notion in this country that for you to be a principal, if you are a woman, you had to be in very good records and books of that particular politician in this country, Honorable Speaker. So the issue of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, especially on the part of women, did not start yesterday, and it has been happening for so many years, Honorable Speaker. And that's why, Honorable Speaker, as a house, as Parliament, Honorable Speaker, we have the responsibility to ensure that all the existing laws are empowered, Honorable Speaker, so that we are able to end the issue of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, especially towards women. Honorable Speaker, I want to be on record that sexual harassment is not only against women, but also against men. It is happening for both in both sides, Honorable Speaker. Just that, Honorable Speaker, in Africa especially, the people who suffer most because of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, are women. And Honorable Speaker, I have been able to go through the report that has been brought to this House by the Committee on Labor, Honorable Speaker. The report, Honorable Speaker, is shocking. I have read in a certain, in page number 13, Honorable Speaker, where the county police commander informed the committee about the number of police stations in the two estates, Honorable Speaker. It says that there is a total of 15 police stations, Honorable Speaker, in that particular estate. And to be specific, Honorable Speaker, James Finlay estate, Honorable Speaker, has 3 police stations, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I have so many unanswered questions. I am just wondering, Honorable Speaker, who and what does these 3 police stations doing in one estate, Honorable Speaker? And none of those particular police stations, Honorable Speaker, have a single record of any person who is actually reporting sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker. You know, Honorable Speaker, that tells you there is more than meets the eye in this issue, Honorable Speaker, because we cannot have 3 police stations within one particular estate and get 0 reports on the same, Honorable Speaker. It tells you, Honorable Speaker, even those persons who are working in that police station, Honorable Speaker, are participants of that particular heinous act that is happening in those estates, Honorable Speaker. So the person who is supposed to help the people who are victims of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, have also partnered with those perpetrators, or they are actually the chief perpetrators, Honorable Speaker. And that one must be looked into, Honorable Speaker. We cannot be having 3 police stations and having 0 reports and having no one having knowledge of the sexual harassment happening, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when the committee visited the National Intelligence Service office, Honorable Speaker, in Kericho, they confidently told the committee, Honorable Speaker, that they are not aware or they have no report. Honorable Speaker, for heaven's sake, this is the NIS. This is the intelligence body, Honorable Speaker, that has the power and has the mechanisms to be able to see things that are happening, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think it's just, I don't know how it should be called, Honorable Speaker, but it is totally unfair. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, and I want to ask your indulgence that I get an extra minute, Honorable Speaker, so that I can be able to conclude on this last statement. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The last issue, Honorable Speaker.
1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The last issue that I want to raise, Honorable Speaker, is the victimization of the said victims. Honorable Speaker, a sexually harassed person is already a very weak person, Honorable Speaker, and the damage that has been caused by the sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, is not only physically damaging but also emotionally permanent, Honorable Speaker. This is the same person who needs to go back to the perpetrator for them to be able to get their daily wage to take care of their families. Honorable Speaker, I want to say sexual harassment has no place in this country, and it should remain as such, Honorable Speaker. And every law and action, Honorable Speaker, should be empowered, Honorable Speaker, so that it can be more punitive to any perpetrator of sexual harassment in whatever cadre of the society, Honorable Speaker. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this matter.
Okay, thank you very much. The Honorable Beatrice Kemei, member for Kericho County.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I wish to support the report of the Departmental Committee of Labor and to thank the said committee for the work they did in inquiring the matter that I raised in the floor of this House concerning the sexual harassment of female workers in the TS states of Kericho. Madam Speaker, I wish to also support the recommendations in the committee report and state as follows. First, Madam Speaker, the DCI needs to fast-track their investigations in identifying the victims of sexual harassment and ensure that those found culpable are brought to book and the victims adequately compensated for the damages occasioned by these heinous acts, Mr. Speaker. Some of them are reported to have been infected by HIV/AIDS, and they are not able to work adequately and to fend for their families. Mr. Speaker, the report recommends that the victims should report the incidences to the police and the county gender office. Well, I support this recommendation, but the victims ought to be assured of their protection so that they can get the courage to speak of the same. And Mr. Speaker, as we speak now, I must also say that the leading petitioner, Dr. Geoffrey Otieno, who was representing the sexually harassed victims, died under unclear circumstances. And this one should not be taken lightly. We also have the lead counsel, Kilpat Kemboy, has been threatened together with the Kenya Planters Branch Secretary for the Union, that is Dixon Sang. They have been threatened for standing with the victims. And this one should not be taken lightly. We have also said that the victims should report. But we ask ourselves as a House, why can they report? And it is very clear that the victims fear the criminal procedure, given that they are subjected to open court to testify, and majority of them have families. So rights to privacy is compromised. Mr. Speaker, I also want to remember that the report states the independence of the gender office within Kericho Police Station is questionable, having been funded by James Finlay, TS State. I wish to call out the officers manning that gender office and to demand that they effectively perform the duties expected of them. And I must also say that as a House, we shall follow up through the Committee of Implementation to ensure that the recommendations of this report are implemented, because the people of Kericho County are waiting to see the stern action taken on those found culpable. Mr. Speaker, I also want to mention that in the contemporary best practices in the world in dealing with such issues include creation of audit team for workers themselves to audit companies like the multinationals on the sex for work or any other human rights violation happening in the place of work, maybe through capacity building, and advocacy. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to thank the Speaker for when this report was brought here. He actually, since I want to thank him so sincerely for his commitment to support the efforts of the women leaders, the legislators under KEWOPA, to actually go around the counties, speak to the women to alleviate such acts. And as I finalize, Mr. Speaker, I wish to propose an amendment to the motion, and allow me 1 minute to do so, that the motion is amended by Part A, insertion of the following words immediately after the figure 2023. I quote, subject to insertion of the following. Okay, thank you. Subject to insertion of the following recommendations in paragraph 74 after subparagraph Roman 9 on page 23 of the report. And Roman 10, where the tea estates are found culpable of acts of commission or omission regarding the sexual harassment of their employees, the government should ensure that the tea estates adequately compensate the victims for the damages occasioned by the heinous acts. And Roman 11, the government should provide psychosocial support to the victims to mitigate the effects of these traumatic experiences and aid them in their recovery. Part B, that the consequential amendments be effected in the report thereof. And Mr. Speaker, I call upon Honorable Umi to second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much. Members, you realize, members, that she's just... Order, members. She's just made a proposed amendment. I was going to ask her to get someone to second the amendments, then I'll give directions after that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call upon Honorable Umi to second. Thank you.
I second.
Go ahead. You seconded already? Okay. I hope members have the proposed amendments by the member for Kericho. And I would therefore proceed to propose that the motion now being debated be amended as proposed by the member. And the proposed amendment is as follows: that the motion be amended by the insertion of the following words immediately after the figure 2023. The subject to insertion of the following recommendations in paragraph 74 after subparagraph 9 on page 23 of the report, so that we have subparagraph 10 that would say, where the tea estates are found culpable of acts of commission or omission regarding the sexual harassment of their employees, the government should ensure that the tea estates adequately compensate the victims for the damages occasioned by the heinous acts. And 11, that the government should provide psychological support to the victims to mitigate the effects of these traumatic experiences and aid them in their recovery. That the constitutional amendments be effected in the report thereof. Honorable members, I would direct that we go on with the debate. This matter, the way it is, you know, we can't put the question on this amendment for various reasons, as you would notice. So would allow us to go on with the debate, then we'll do the needful when we get the numbers. So this chance will then go to the Honorable Onyango Oyo of Muhoroni.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for catching my eye and enabling me to contribute to this motion. Honorable Speaker, although I'm a ranking member of this committee, for other reasons I was not able to accompany the committee to Kericho, but I believe that the reason why a lot of investigations have been referred to the DCI because they did not come out very explicit cases or exhibits to prove the allegations. I want to say that God, in his own wisdom, made sure that he wanted the human beings to multiply. And therefore, he allowed us to have sex. So this thing of having sex, unless the people are very afraid of their background, should not be something that is used to scare people. I am wondering that the women folk spend a lot of time defending themselves and wanting to demonize anything sexual as if it is the only guilt or offense that happens in this world. That is not true, because proper analysis will show you that many women who push themselves the ladder of employment, including those who get voted into parliament, also push for sex favors, sexual favors. And it is only men. It's not only men. And I want to say that in this case, proper investigation should be done by the DCI, and the culprits should be brought to books so that the truth about the whole thing is known. I am a bit cagey because I preside over leadership of a place where they grew a lot of sugarcane, and I have duplicity of the caliber of workers that are in Kericho who work in the sugarcane plantations. So somebody funny trying to replicate the Kericho Finley James Finley saga recently sent me a message that something was coming up, like Kericho, the workers in the sugarcane are also known to benefit, to get promotions or get other considerations after having sex with the supervisors of those sugarcane factories. So I should have an investigation and know the truth and see how it can be stopped. But I'm not gullible, so I quickly told him that the sugar industry stopped these things of using the sugarcane plantation, I mean the weeders and those plantation workers. They are now subcontracted to businessmen. So it's up to the businessman who brings his subcontracted workers to work for Chemelil or Muhoroni or Miwani or Kibos for that aspect, who's supposed to look after his employees. They're no longer employees of the tea industry. Why am I bringing this? I'm bringing this because people have found this is a gray area. It's a gray area where people want to make money. Powerful women are now extorted by some photos that may not be very true. Some are what they call, I don't know what they call it, but they can have your image, they can have your image and then purport that you are having sex with somebody. What? Photoshop. So they are now everywhere. With the high technology we are going through, we must accept all these things. But anyway, what I want to say, there's a saying that when a dog bites a man, it is not news. But when a man bites a dog, it is big news. Because the job of the dog is to bite a man. But the job of a man is not to bite a dog. So this ulabalu we are having here about women, you are rising to fame. If you are caught somewhere, it takes two to tango. But if an influential woman is caught doing something, she's being pumped into higher influence. So that should not be a problem. More so when it is sexual intercourse, I should not see why my colleagues are jumping up and down if one of them is caught in the wrong foot, and then you think that's the high end of the world. That's making her more famous. So I want to say that in this case of Kericho, investigations should go further and should zero in on the actual perpetrators of these heinous facts. Otherwise, I support the report. Thank you.
Member for Elgeyo Marakwet.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this motion. Honorable Speaker, the issue of sexual harassment, I think, is an issue that has been there with us since the inception or since the
since the beginning of this world. And at times, the more we change, the more we remain the same. The more we think we are civilized and we are on the know, the more we realize that the same thing remains. Mr. Speaker, I want to appreciate the report by the Labour Committee. But then, Mr. Speaker, as I heard, they were saying that it was said that not so many people went to the police station to report their cases. Neither did they find so many people coming up to complain. Sexual harassment, Mr. Speaker, speaking from the point of a woman, is something that brings a lot of shame and a lot of, in fact, you become more harassed when you report sexual harassment issues at times. So you realize that the DCI should not base so much their finding on the number of victims who will come out to testify. Here you have a woman who is single, for example, and has children to feed and take care of. This woman depends on the tea plantation to ensure that her family runs, or to ensure that there is still life in her family. Then you put her in a very awkward situation whereby she has to testify against her employer in order to be heard and for that to find justice. If I am that particular woman or any other woman can attest to this, they'd rather leave the case at that so that their children will still go to school and so that our family will still eat. Mr. Speaker, something must be done, and I've always told men, when we speak about sexual harassment and talk about women, it is not only, don't look at that point in the lens of your wives or your girlfriends. Look at that point in the lens of your mothers and your daughters. Because you find at times these bills or these issues or these discussions to do with sexual harassment and women are not much supported by men because they look at it in the lens of their women. Look at it in the lens of your sister, in the lens of your daughter or your mother. As much as investigations are going to be done, I want to urge the committee to follow up to ensure that the culprits will be brought to book. Let us not just downplay the whole issue and say that it has been assigned for investigation, or we start now arguing the point that the company is subcontracting, the sexual harassers are subcontracted. They should be held responsible. Remember, during the BBC video, it was said that most of those women have been infected with HIV and AIDS. It means that this person is knowingly, it is so hard to find that that particular person doesn't have knowledge that he is infected. So at times also the stigmatization surrounding the HIV and AIDS, whereby people fear that these women fear that even their own families might run away from them, is real. So the government should just find a way of protecting and be the person suing the tea companies, or they should stand up for those women, because they don't have to be the ones executing or the ones witnessing. It can be done as a point of interest to save a population, because if one person can infect around 60 people, Mr. Speaker, and we come here and say that the DCI will deal with that particular person, what happens if that particular person gets out of the hook? What will happen to these hundreds and thousands of people who are already affected and infected, and their life is no longer going to remain the same? So as I support the motion, I still want to say that this issue should be relooked at, and the penalties of the same should be stiffened and tightened. Companies should be given ultimatums that whether they are their employees perpetrate the act or the affair, there should be stiff penalties that should be faced, even when the third parties relating to the companies are the ones, are the accused ones, because we need to come up and save people. We need to come up and save this gender, because this gender is all of us. All of us are one, so that we don't just look at it as women.
Member for Starehe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to make my maiden speech this month, and for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this debate about the issue of sexual harassment in Kericho. I think this issue not only affects people in Kericho, it is an issue that has cut across board. Actually, in my constituency, where I happen to have 2 wards that have huge population in the ghettos, the issue of sexual harassment is very rampant. Actually, and I find it as a point of concern that people have developed very, very shady, shanty mechanisms of dealing with these issues, such that some of these issues don't even get to the police. They have formed these some committees where they say that the issues to do with sexual harassment should be dealt with by the community itself, and I find that to be very untoward, and I find that very 21st century, and I think we should take serious measures to address these issues of sexual harassment. The government that has come on board, the Kenya Kwanza government, we have very many expectations and hopes to the government, and I wish it takes very stern steps so that we can deal with these perennial issues once and for all. We should come out strongly and repeal the Sexual Offences Act and have capital offences implicated on these sexual offenders, so that once and for all we can deal with this issue that has been bedeviling this country. It is time we rise up for the women of Kenya today, and as members of the 13th Parliament, I think the responsibility lies on us to make sure we come up with a conclusive solution to the issues of sexual harassment. It is time we speak from one side of the mouth and be proactive. We don't become reactive. We don't address issues after all those women have been raped, after all those women have been sexually harassed. That's when we're looking for solutions. Let us be proactive and come up with mechanisms that will deal with this issue once and for all. I happen to come from a single parent family, and I've been brought up by my mother in the streets of Nairobi. And I can attest to some instances of where people expected sexual favors for her, maybe to maneuver in her area of business. But being a Christian woman, I think, and through God's grace, she managed to raise me, and today I'm an MP, and I feel I have the responsibility to protect other women who are going through the same when they are bringing up their children single-handedly. And it is time this Parliament acts in very stern words and in very stern actions that we may address the issue of sexual harassment once and for all. On the other issue of the cyberbullying that has happened to one of the leaders of this country because of the video circulating, I think it is time also this Parliament amends laws and we become in tandem with the current technology, because issues of cyberbullying tend not to have any backlash from the laws that we have in Kenya. People can easily even bully you in social media. People are throwing insults to us, even us politicians, social media, but no stern steps can be taken, because I think we have to have laws that will be in tandem with the social media, maybe the technological advancements of this country, so that we can address these sexual predators once and for all. It is very unfortunate that such an injustice can be done to one person, affect their families, affect their husband and their children for a lifetime, and the person who has done that goes scot-free. They must also suffer a lifetime sentence, as the family suffers a lifetime sentence of torture and trauma. I think it is time now we need to come and have very serious deliberations on the route that this country is taking. Because if we go in that way, we'll have a very sick society where people can pervertedly use photos, even to satisfy themselves, and other videos from other people, and actually take matters into their own hands literally. It needs to stop once and for all. I submit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for West Mugirango.
I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also support this very, very touchy motion that touches on a very heinous crime that has not been given the weight it deserves. I want to thank the Committee for Labor for going boldly to inquire into this menace that is happening in our plantations. I also happen to have a few of those plantations neighboring Kericho. They are in Sotik and areas like Kebe Sasini, which border my constituency. And the findings about this menace in Kericho is actually a case study of what must be happening everywhere in the plantations and everywhere else in the workplace. As a practicing lawyer, Mr. Speaker, I've had occasion to represent clients who have made allegations of sexual harassment within the banking working place, within the sports working place, even dare I say, even within the worshipping areas. And therefore, the problem of sexual harassment is not limited to the plantation sector, but it is widespread in the workplace. And I want to, at this juncture, celebrate our artists from Nyamira, my constituency, who composed a special piece about sexual harassment and women in the workplace. The Sungusia band who sang about boss, a boss who was harassing and cowing lady workers to sexual favors in hotels in exchange for promotions, in exchange for salary increases. And while we do this, Mr. Speaker, this House must rise to the occasion and import very heavy penalties for these sex pests who are marauding the workplaces and abusing their positions in office to unleash their bad manners on otherwise their very respectable employees. And while I'm at this, I must admit that Kenya and indeed Africa is a paternalistic continent and country. And therefore, claims of sexual harassment or talk of sex hurts women more than it hurts men. And that is why for men who are accused of doing those things, they are celebrated and taken as heroes when they are actually criminals, while the consequences are different for our sisters, mothers, and daughters. And therefore, that is why in dealing with this menace, this House must come up with serious legislation that makes this offense as harsh as it can be, so that those who are still harboring any idea that women are not the angels God has given us must pay heavily for such consequences. And as I support, Mr. Speaker, I want to beg of us leaders to also take caution that we are targeted through those sexual episodes or whatever pictures that are going to be taken of us, because people out there are out to bring down serious leaders in this country. And for the videos taking the rounds, targeting a semblance of a leader in this country who comes from where such a position has never been held by a lady, I want to say shame on them, and I want to encourage all women to stand up and ignore that rubbish, discharge their responsibilities in this country as if nothing had happened. I submit and support.
Member, just remind you that the motion we are discussing has no video or anything to it, because I've heard every member now wants to. It's almost basically you're almost basically also supplying that video. The more you talk about it, this chance goes to the member for Korea West. Honorable Robi, the mic next to you may work. Just
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa nafasi hii pia mimi kuweza kuchangia hii ripoti ambayo imeletwa katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii ni ripoti nzuri sana katika nchi yetu ya Kenya ambayo inajali maslahi ya binadamu. Na wakati tunazungumzia kulazimisha mapenzi kwa sehemu za kazi, na hii saa zingine inaonyesha tabia ambayo si nzuri katika hii nchi ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima sisi kama Wakenya tutilie maanani, na tunasema, na Waswahili pia wanasema mapenzi hailazimishwi. Kama mtu hajakubaliwa, si lazima kulazimisha mwenzake. Na hili limetokea kila mara kwa mara, na tumeangalia mambo yakijitokeza, na tunataka tutoe onyo kali sana. Na yule mheshimiwa ambaye alileta haya matatizo ambaye yanatokea kule Kericho, na kweli ni kwamba Kericho ni sehemu ambayo imejulikana ya chai, mahali hata wale tunasema mahasala au wale wanaenda kutafuta riziki kule, watu wengine wanachukua nafasi hiyo bali kusaidia yule mwenye anahitaji msaada, inakuwa sasa anachukua nafasi hiyo kuitumia vibaya, kuweza kulazimisha. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kweli hatuwezi sema kuwa ni hali inapata wanawake peke yao. Hata wanaume pia tunajua inatokea namna hiyo. Kuna wale wanawake ambayo unakuta saa zingine yeye labda ameweza kumpenda mwanaume na mwanaume ampendi, inatokea kuwa analazimishwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, najua wakati tunaongelea jambo hili ni jambo ambalo ni la huzuni na la aibu, kuwa hapa duniani kila mtu vile umeumbwa inatakikana ufuate maagizo ya ngono vizuri. Kumaanisha kama mwenzako hajakukubalia, ni makosa na ni marufuku kwenda kumlazimisha kulala naye au kuweza kulazimisha katika ngono. Biblia tunajua kuna mwanaume aliumbwa, mwanamke akaumbwa. Wawili wakawekwa sehemu, wakaambiwa muweze kuzaa, mpate watoto, tuongezeke. Ili tuongezeke inatakikana tuwe tumekubaliana. Kwa hivyo nafasi hii wakati mtu unachukua kwa lazima kuweza kulazimisha mwanamke ili kuweza kulala naye, si hoja nzuri. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi katika Kenya hii tunataka kuambia serikali kuwa ifuatilie sana maeneo kama hayo ya kazi, ambayo unakuta kuna bosi mmoja badala atumie hekima. Unakuta kuna msichana ametamani au msichana ameenda pale kutafuta kazi, badala aweze kumsaidia apate kazi ya kihakika kwa sababu amesoma, anamwambia ili upate hii kazi lazima ufanye hivi. Hiyo ni kulazimishana pia. Pia tunataka kusema kuwa kuna vile vile wale mabosi ambayo kuna kazi mahali, ili aweze kukusaidia upate hiyo kazi, unakuta yeye anatangulia kusema kuwa lazima ni mapenzi ndio aweze kukusaidia. Na mimi nataka kuchukua nafasi hii kushukuru sana na kupongeza hii idara ambayo ni wafanyikazi, uweze kutilia maanani sana na kuchunga wafanyikazi kila mahali. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Sana, nafasi hii itaenda kwenye Mheshimiwa Tui Kusini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this very important report by the committee. And I would like first to congratulate the member for Kericho County and also thank her for the way she has narrated, even within the few minutes that she got. Honorable Speaker, I would also like to say that I have read this report, I've looked at the recommendations, and I have also listened to the members who went to the ground and interrogated these people who are suffering in Kericho County. Honorable Speaker, I also would like to thank the Speaker of this House for ensuring that this is not only a house of debating on matters, but going to the ground and ensuring that the reports are tabled, and this must be pushed extremely hard, Mr. Speaker, so that we just do not talk, and these people who are suffering, the culprits are not brought to book. So, Honorable Speaker, I would like to support and to say that it's not only in Kericho, this is happening in extremely wealthy homesteads in this country. It is happening in the poorest homesteads. It is happening in places of worship, Honorable Speaker. It is happening in our universities where we are talking about grades, sex for grades. It is happening in situations where we have extremely poor people in Lake Victoria, where it is fish for sex. So, Mr. Speaker, this matter must be taken very seriously. Going to this report, Mr. Speaker, is that I have looked at the recommendations of this committee that seems to suggest that even for someone to be hired in this company, they are taken through this ordeal. For you to be promoted in this company, you are taken through this ordeal. For you to be taken to the easier department to work, you are taken through this ordeal. And Mr. Speaker, people are scared to report. Even when they report in whispers, nobody takes action. So, Mr. Speaker, I think now it is upon this House to ensure that as soon as this report is passed by this House, the Implementation Committee takes action to make sure that the people whose names appear on page 18, Honorable Speaker, of this report are brought to book, because their names, the names of the company are stated, and the names of the people are stated, and we have a government of the day, of a very serious president, who I am sure will not accept, the Honorable Samoei Ruto. This should not be happening in our country at this time when he is seated in the throne of this country. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that this matter is not happening in this country only, but it is happening in the Hollywood. And what these countries did in America is that they took it very seriously, and they did not care the names of the companies that were being mentioned because they were the best. They did not care about the standard or the wealth that was held by the culprits in the Hollywood. They decided to crush the menace, at least for those who spoke in the Me Too report that is already in the media. Anybody who spoke was given a chance, Honorable Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that this is not only a sexual harassment issue, it is a gender violence issue, Mr. Speaker. It is a social issue. It is affecting these people's health, their social life, their families, their health, because you are talking about HIV/AIDS. Honorable Speaker, you just warned us that there is no video in this report. But I would like to request you to allow us to speak about this matter that is happening now, Honorable Speaker. That women leaders in this country are being exposed, Honorable Speaker, by men who are scared about the success of these women, Mr. Speaker. I would like to encourage the leaders that have been mentioned, the particular leader that has been mentioned in this video, and to tell her that she cannot stop. She must continue working very fast. She must run. She must defeat the men, Honorable Speaker, who have put her in this situation, Mr. Speaker. We are not telling the women to be careful. We are just going to tell them that ensure that you are not caught unawares. Ensure that you do not get near these men who are terrible, Mr. Speaker. But I must tell the women, you must keep moving. You cannot stop because there is a video circulating. It has gone, it has happened, but it must not stop these women from being leaders of this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Keep going, keep being leaders. Member for Samburu East.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to support this report. Mr. Speaker, the people who are living in this tea estate needs help, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this report has mentioned so many things. And I think, Honorable Speaker, if I try to think, these are families, these are people, both married and even those who are not married, families who have children. And Mr. Speaker, I think even their partners may be aware of what is happening, but because of this fear of being sacked from employment, maybe that is why some people are keeping quiet. And I think, Mr. Speaker, for the sake of the families who are living in those tea estates, I think as a House, we really need to act to this report, Mr. Speaker. And just many speakers have said, this issue is happening in so many other parts of this country. And I think, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to issue of sexual harassment, it is really a bad thing. I try to think in my thinking, how is that one happening? Mr. Speaker, it defeats logic. Because even the bosses, I think the bosses also have families. And if they will be exposed, I think even them, they are not safe. And Mr. Speaker, this one should not be allowed to continue. People have suffered long ago. And it is not something which has started yesterday. I think it has been there since those TS that are there. And because the media has highlighted this, and the committee have visited the area, Mr. Speaker, this one should be made to stop immediately, because they have suffered enough. And I think, Mr. Speaker, even those things we are seeing, it's not anything that has happened this time, this particular time. It has been there for a very long time ago. And I think even our ladies and the women of Kenya, we really have to stand up for them. And we want to say what has been happening, let us now take the lead and implement this report. Because if we will just discuss here and leave it there, then we have not solved anything. And this House should stand for these people from this tea estate. Mr. Speaker, if you just read this report and see the way the individuals are narrating their story, it is such a very bad thing if it will be allowed to continue in Kenya. And we have the power and the ability to stop it. So I want to say, Mr. Speaker, I support this report. Let us work on it. Let us implement. Let us condemn this act. It is very bad and barbaric. It should not continue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member for Dagoretti North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support this report, to appreciate the woman rep of Kericho County. I believe when I came with this statement 1 month ago under Standing Order 44-2C, I want to really appreciate the committee for taking over and to now follow through and bring in this report, to thank the Speaker for giving us that opportunity to just going to the ground and listening to many of the stories that the women were saying, But more importantly, when I read the report, Mr. Speaker, it means that we now need to move to the next level. I think it is always sad when we talk about issues of women, issues of conjugal rights and all this sexual harassment in this country, where we've just made it as if it's very simple. I mean, if it's in Europe, today I think it is everyone would have resigned. But in our country, I think in Africa, because we are used to another different culture, which we appreciate. But then, having seen all this, Mr. Speaker, we come back now and ask ourselves, the families. Yes, we have the victims, but what about the children? The torture they are going through, up to today. Some of them maybe are born from all this. They wonder what to say when they stand. Who is my father? Because maybe when you were raped at that time, you never know they got pregnant. We haven't even spoken about that. So even as we look at it, we have to look at it how it affects deeply different families. And Mr. Speaker, it's not just Kericho. It is in our offices, it is in our houses, it is everywhere where sexual harassment finds itself. You find yourself maybe in a family where a man will decide the house nanny has become also the wife. That is sexual harassment. And so it's not about just Kericho. We are saying it has come out, we have to deal with Kericho, but we know in the flower farms, in all these farms, in every companies that we have huge numbers of employees, everyone now fighting, Mr. Speaker, to have at least maybe a right to be promoted. It must either go through this process. So, Mr. Speaker, in this House, it is also very unfortunate that when we are talking about sexual harassment, we come again and talk about our own sexual harassment. It is very unfortunate that even, as you said, Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that we can even try to imagine we are speaking about it. But because it is there, Mr. Speaker, and we must deal with it, and I want to tell the women of Kenya, we must deal with this matter once and for all. It is important to now come out clear as women of Kenya that when we go into our private lives, you are not going alone. You have the same man there. And therefore, for you to come out and now cyberbully and remove and destroy a whole family, especially the children. Forget about the victim, the children. I remember, Mr. Speaker, it was very sad when I saw my friend's son, an Alliance boy, who was doing actuarial science at Nairobi University, leaving school because of such madness. And we cannot allow again another child and another child to get into depression because of a man who has gone berserk. Because you must be a very, very evil person, evil man, to do what you have done. And whoever did even the photos and giving up, Mr. Speaker, as I finalize and I say, we must deal with it the way it is done, ruthlessly, without fear or favor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kamkunji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. I want to join the rest of the House in supporting this motion at this particular moment, in fact, where these issues are quite common in our society, and particularly happening in a large estate run by multinationals that have very good regulations, very strict regulations in the management of their staff, that this particular incident went unattended or unaddressed for many times. Sexual harassment and sexual abuse are heinous crimes that cause immense harm to the victims, particularly women. These actions are forms of violence that violate a person's bodily autonomy and dignity, and they can have long-lasting physical and psychological consequences and impact. And as has been said here, it is ravaging many, many homes in our country. Sexual harassment is another form of gender-based violence that involves unwanted sexual advances, comments, gestures, or physical contact. And I think it seems as if we have accepted this as a normal behavior. The denigration of women, including objectification, belittling, disrespect, also perpetuates harmful gender stereotypes and reinforces unequal power dynamics in our society between men and women. The danger I see, Mr. Speaker, is that this can lead to a culture that normalizes violence against women and undermines their agency and autonomy. And this is what we are seeing, particularly in some of the social media circles. This is a degrading, destroying, and debasing of our women. And it's happening in every corner of our country. We must fight this cancer that is ravaging the social fabric of our nation. And this motion issues us an opportunity to sort of reinforce what we need to do in this particular area. Another aspect of this is the negative masculinity, often that plays out in perpetuating these harms. Traditional ideas about what it means to be a man, such as the idea that a man should be dominant, aggressive, and sexually assertive, can also fuel a sense of entitlement that contributes to sexual abuse and harassment. I think we also need to fight this type of traditional behavior and also empower young boys and train them and help them to be educated in schools about aspects that would reinforce the fact that they don't need to be involved in toxic masculinity, but can be men who can contribute to supporting their women. The other element I like to touch on of sexual abuse and sexual harassment and the denigration of women are the serious social problems that have profound impacts on individuals and society. We must work to challenge harmful gender stereotypes and promote a culture that respects bodily autonomy and gender equality and human dignity for all. I also want to condemn the despicable acts we have recently seen in the social media in the last few days, where the privacy of women were violated violently. I would say these are detestable actions that we must all condemn, and the media must not be used as an outlet to demonize and stigmatize our women. We must reject the invasion of one's private affairs with which the public has no legitimate concern, or wrongful intrusion into one's private activities in such manner as to outrage or cause mental suffering, shame, or humiliation to a person of ordinary sensibilities. Our society must have a zero tolerance to all kinds of stigmatization, demonization, and objectification of women. And enough is enough. And it's time for our men folk to stand with our women. And the time is now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well spoken. Member from Beren North. And members, just to note, I'm just following this list. I'm not in the mood of doing anything stupid today. So I just follow it. We have very few of us remaining. If you take 3-4 minutes each, all of us get a chance to speak, and then we finalize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise, first of all, to thank and congratulate the Committee of Labour for this report and for a job well done. Mr. Speaker, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Article 68 of the Charter says that women in Africa must be protected against sexual and gender-based violence in line with the Maputo Protocol, that every woman should have the right to dignity inherent in human being and to the recognition and protection of our rights and legal rights. Mr. Speaker, it is going to speak to the men of the Republic that every man should be able to carry 4 handkerchiefs. The first one is to wipe the tears of your daughter. The second one is to wipe the tears of your mother. The third one is to wipe the tears of your wife. And the fourth one is to wipe the tears of your sister. Men should be able to protect women, whether it's your daughter, wife, mother, or sister. It is extremely humane for what happened in that tea plantation. And Mr. Speaker, whatever happened in the tea plantation, it is just, what we can see at the top. But the root cause of all these, it is important that the nation to be undressed. Probably there are other very bad and humane things which are happening not only in the plantations we have, but in different corners of this world, of this country, as far as labor is concerned. Probably we have even child labor in our plantations. Child labor which is involving young girls and maybe young boys. It is important to put this very, a clear message to the multinationals or to the landowners, to the landowners of this country, that we have charters which our country, our nation, is signatory to. We have laws which this parliament has enacted. Those laws and those charters should be respected and should be not only respected, but should be enforced properly by the judicial systems we have in our country. Mr. Speaker, the issue of land also may be one of the underlying factors which is causing the problem we are discussing in this house today. And probably there's a day which will come. It may not come in the near future, when probably we are in this house. But maybe in some future, we may have land appropriation without compensation, Mr. Speaker. Because the women are suffering in these plantations because of the issues to do with land. Those multinationals are having this land, and not only in our tea plantations, but also in coast, in central Kenya, and many other places. All these historical injustices, Mr. Speaker, one day, one time, they will be unrest. I support this motion. I support this report, and I commend the good work done by the Committee of Labor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I hope the ladies had handkerchiefs too. This chance goes to the member for Bureti.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to be able to contribute and support this motion that we have on the table concerning what actually is gender violence against our women and sexual exploitation in the tea plantations in Kericho. First, we want to commend the committee on the report that they did and the work that they've been able to put in, the time that they put in, commending also the women rep for Kericho County for raising up this matter and also bringing it to light, that we may be able to discuss and be able to share the things that we do know and also condemn in the strongest terms possible the sex for work in our tea estates. First, Mr. Speaker, one, you may actually realize the report raised the whole question of the policies of these companies within the tea estates, that they make decisions for profit and ignoring all affairs of human dignity and human way of dealing. And this has given birth to what we now know as sexual exploitation within the tea estates. The policies to subcontract the labor is a profit-motivating decision, but ignoring what may happen to the employees in those environments. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I would want to raise the question that Ekatera, one of the companies that actually was facing all these things, are known to have condoned and acted in cohorts with the criminals that are causing all these things. In the report, Mr. Speaker, you may recall that the DCI actually was downgrading or downplaying the whole issue. The company themselves were trying to make sure that it is not known. They did not respond even to the media houses as they raised these questions. And it will not be forgotten, Mr. Speaker, that the immediate previous administrator of Ekatera, one Mr. Nick, had actually married one of the employees within the institution. And it looks to us and all the members and the people of Kericho County that this is a practice and this is something that they have continued to engage in while purporting to have clear policies and regulations that govern and protect our women, which have not been enforced. You will recall that in the report that no one is coming forward to report on these things. Even when they have toll-free lines, they still feel the victimization and the kind of things that do happen to them even after they make the reports. Number two, we are aware also, because I come from Kericho County, about the investigations the company is currently doing. One, they have ignored the report of the DCI. They have not allowed the DCI to come in. They have hired a private investigator, as I'm aware, a man who had been hired before and did not raise these matters, one Mr. Hilary Lombard, who is currently spearheading the investigations of this manner within the organizations. However, we must report here and let the country know that these investigations being carried out are skewed, biased, and intended in punishing people rather than resolving the situation that is prevailing on the ground. The current situation in Kericho tea estates, in almost all companies now, is that all male managers, while it is good to investigate them, are being harassed. A committee has been formed by the company, only of 3 people, all of them non-locals, to make sure that, well, I receive it with a lot of, with the promise that it will be able to raise up and bring out the issues in depth. But to the locals, they are feeling that they are being excluded in all these things. And, Mr. Speaker, one thing that must come out clearly is that the company must take responsibility of what is happening with these institutions. In my opinion, I do not see why the current MD of Feminist and the current head of plantations of Ekatera should still be in office, having presided over such heinous crimes against our women, against our daughters, and against the people of this country, knowing that these are foreigners. They are further involving themselves in aspects that we would actually see as things that are out of what we would know to be the investigation that will be carried.
Member for Baringo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, I want to say that I support the reports of the Committee of Labor. And also want to congratulate my colleague, Honorable Beatrice, for this very important motion that is brought before us. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with most of our members, my colleagues who have spoken before me, that it has come a time that this country must walk the talk and be the leader, especially in the flow of the House, by guiding and giving direction on the things that happens in our community. Talking about the sexual exploitation and in Kericho tea plantation, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, it's a very unfortunate situation that sex has been used as a tool to disparage. Sex has been used in circumstances that has made, especially women, very vulnerable to the extent that they are giving in to situations because of what they are being put into. Mr. Speaker, I also want to relate this with many other issues, because being a girl from Savannah, we are exposed with a lot of tenets in the society that we have to obey and we have to give men space because they are the leaders of the society. But in the recent times, we have realized that most of the perpetration and most of the things that are happening in the society today is being perpetrated by men. Unfortunately, the society believes, especially African, believes that men are supposed to be the people who are giving direction and guiding. We are complaining today because of Kericho, and most members have said that sex favors has been played in most of the fields. In schools, we have sex, fish for sex in the lake regions. We have early child marriages in our pastoralist society, and all this is because of a gratification, especially for a mature man who is always above the woman in question. I also want to talk about the social media bullying. Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate that being a leader, as much as you work so hard to help the society, you are also a target of sex pests in the society. Men who look at women and devalue them, and narcissistic, with men with a lot of narcissistic tendencies that control and look at especially strong women and mostly leaders as objects of probably, money, taking advantage because of their positions and probably money, and trying to use that when at that vulnerable situation or vulnerable time and private spaces, to bring it out and embarrass the lady. And as we all know, we are speaking as members of parliament, one of us or many of us have been treated to these problems. And I want to say it is unfortunate that as I speak as a member of parliament, we have no clear laws that protect cyberbullying, especially in the privacy of a leader. And I'm saying leaders because we are the mirrors of the society. Sometimes you don't want to look like you are speaking on behalf of people who want to treat you badly. And as I support this report, I also want to say we will have a lot of time to amend the laws and to accommodate laws that will help us going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Teso South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important conversation with respect to the report. I want to appreciate the committee for bringing this report to the floor and for the efforts they undertook even to visit, to interrogate the matter further and to be able to investigate so that when they give us a report on the floor of this House, it's a report that we can rely on. Mr. Speaker, sexual harassment is here with us. It's an issue that's deep-rooted in our society. And it is a menace that cuts across. I want to agree with colleagues who have said that it's not only limited to Kericho tea farms, but it cuts across all sectors. Mr. Speaker, we know of women in this country who have been even sacked or given show cause letters for no crime committed, for no disciplinary action, for no apparent reason, but because they cannot speak about it. Or even when they report, they are blamed by the authorities that they are reporting to are supposed to assist them. In fact, they are victimized. They are told they are the ones with the problem. And you may even be told because you are wearing a miniskirt. So it is a problem that we have to deal with. And I think I want to support those who have echoed the fact that we need to relook at our laws. But besides creating or making our laws more punitive, putting in more punitive penalties, I think it's also important that there are clauses introduced to protect the victim. So that even when you report, so that we're able to encourage victims to report these issues. So that even when you report, you are safe. You are not threatened by being sacked. You are not threatened by being, being punished further. So, Mr. Speaker, it is an issue that is sad, and the impact. Some of these harassed, the victims, undergo a lot of trauma. Some of them even degenerate into depression. And in some cases, as a result of this forced sex, somebody is infected. You get a degenerative disease or unwanted pregnancy. And they go through a lot. And I think it's a matter that we must look at holistically. Besides just looking at the harassment, how do we even deal with the impacts of the harassment? How do we support those victims, Mr. Speaker? And Mr. Speaker, and this takes me to the other aspect of that my colleagues have also touched on. Cyberbullying is another area that we as members must look into. Private spaces, what you do in your bedroom must be respected. Women of this country must be respected. And we are seeing a trend where leaders, senior members of government are being targeted by what I would call madmen. And I think I can only call them madmen or fools. Because when he finds himself, they have a relationship, they have agreed, they have spent time together. Why do you embarrass the other person? Why is it the woman? And I want to say this. We must put laws with huge penalties to put such characters behind bars so that we are able to deter that from continuing. We're seeing videos trending, and today there's another one trending. Tomorrow it might be you. Tomorrow it will be another one. So as leaders, we must do something about it. People's privacy must be respected. Women of this country must be respected. For how long will they be embarrassed? I imagine the families, the children, probably, your friends and everyone else. When you are put on the kind of videos that we are seeing, it's not something that we can smile about. And sometimes at this age of, technology, we are not even sure whether those are true. It could be Photoshop. Who is sure that those are true pictures? That was the same person that they are trying to portray.
Maybe it's time also to bite the bullet and be able to report to the police. Because some of these matters, you don't report them because you fear showing your face. Maybe it's time also to take time to say, on this one, there's a red line, I won't report myself, and the guys be dealt with. This chance goes to the member for Samburu West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this very important matter and to contribute to this report. I'd like to first thank and congratulate the women rep of Kericho, Beatrice Kemei, for asking for this inquiry into this matter, which actually brought a lot of concern and became a national issue. And as many have said, this must have been something that has been going on for many years, and by BBC bringing it out and also her bringing it to this house, and even the committee led by the chair, Eric Karemba, getting into the gist of what is really going on, making it public and even a national matter, Mr. Speaker, and even it being discussed in this house. What I'd just like to echo what my colleagues have said, that it will be very unfortunate if this matter then ends here, that we have just debated about it, there will be no justice for these women, for their families, then it will be something that we are doing in futility. And so, because I have seen the DCI has been mentioned greatly in this report, that they have to take action, they have to do proper investigations, only then can we say as a house that this debate and even the resources and the efforts that were put in doing the investigations have actually bore fruit. Mr. Speaker, we have to ask ourselves, why don't women go and report these issues? Or even men or boys who also go through the same, Mr. Speaker. You know, there is always the whole issue of putting the burden on the victim. You know, even now when we're talking about the issues of the women who are being exposed and everything, already that person is down, and we are putting the blame, and we are putting a lot of they shouldn't, they should have, what, you know, were these women also forced even to sleep with those men? We're putting the burden on the victims rather than supporting them and asking ourselves, why don't they even go to report? I know that many a times we tried as a country to say that we have desks at the police stations which are manned by women. We made some strides, I don't know how far we have gone with them, to make it more easier and to make it more friendly for victims to actually feel safe in this country, to go and report and know that they will not be victimized thereafter, Mr. Speaker, because we know that I'm sure many of them now are afraid of their lives, they are afraid of, that's why they couldn't even put their faces out there when they were recording the expose by BBC, Mr. Speaker. And so as a country, we really have to think about the victims and to protect them and to ensure that they feel safe in going to report this matters, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, we cannot continue to protect perpetrators of such incidences, and you can see it in many other ways. The women who are being killed by their lovers, and I think this is a country where, you know, when you're the victim, you know, I look at many cases, we've just heard that so-and-so has been killed, and that story just ends there. No one really, we've really not seen many convictions of people who actually take the lives of others through these love triangles and matters like that, and even such cases of sexual abuse, Mr. Speaker. It is very unfortunate that also we have seen that in some of the comments, the senior management is in some of the points here are actually agreeing and acknowledging that there are such incidences. So this is not a matter that should end here. If they're acknowledging, we want to know what next, what has been done next. And I want to encourage my sister, Honorable Beatrice, that don't let it end here. And if you have to follow it up also with the DCI, if you have to get more support, just continue. Otherwise, this will be work in futility for us to just debate this matter and it ends here. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, you'll agree with me that in our country, when something comes up, it's there in the media, it gets all the hype. You know, we're now talking about the accidents. We're seeing the Ministry of Transport quickly now saying, let's do A, B, C, D. After a few days, again, we forget about it until, again, the accidents are back or until we have another incident like this one, which has been reported. So I really hope that the victims will get justice and they will be protected.
Finally, I want to add my voice to what my other colleagues have added. And it's very unfortunate on what has been going on social media, on the whole issue of privacy, the whole issue of exposing, nudity. Where are we going really as a society and as a people? And the same thing. In 30 seconds. You know, we cannot, like right now, when a certain member of parliament is down, we are still saying, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that. They were not doing it alone. And secondly, and we don't even know whether it is true, whether it is photoshopped, whether it's not. As a country, we cannot thrive on such matters of exposing ourselves and others to the public on matters that are so shameful. I don't know where we're going as a country, and this generation, Gen Z, should know to have respect and to not thrive on such matters, Mr. Speaker. I totally condemn that and say that it's something that should not be happening in our country in this century. Thank you.
Member for Kajiado.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to add my voice to this very important debate, report by the Departmental Committee of Labor, which I'm also a member. I'd also like to congratulate my sister, Honorable Beatrice Kemei, for highlighting this issue that is happening not only in the tea estates in Kericho County, but is happening, Mr. Speaker, everywhere in the country. It is happening in our workplaces. It is happening in our schools. It is happening everywhere, Mr. Speaker. And I think it's about time that we spoke about these issues and came up with laws and strengthened the laws that are there. Because the saddest thing, Mr. Speaker, is that these things are becoming a habit. It is becoming the everyday's norm. But the saddest thing is we never see these culprits actually the perpetrators being brought to books. Every time we speak about sexual harassment, every time we speak about violence against women, we speak about them like it's a history that we're giving. We speak about them like stories that we're giving in class. But we actually never see anybody that is actually been brought into books and actually punished for such heinous acts, Mr. Speaker. I think it's about time that we need to see the results and not just speaking about it. For this matter, like the matter that we have at hand, brought about by our sister, Honorable Kemei, just like my sister said, that it's about time that we see something happening. We see the end of it. We just don't debate here in the House and bring and talk about it for hours, but at the end of it, it just dies a natural death. We don't see people brought to books. We don't see anybody being punished for what they did. And Mr. Speaker, this translates to violence against women. Harassment, sexual harassment is actually violence against women. These women go through depression because most of these things are done by their seniors. In the case of the Kericho Tea Estate, the senior management is the one that is forcing this junior staff into these things. And you know, these junior staff cannot speak. And because they are there they're trying to get jobs, they're trying to fend for their families, most of them just get into these acts and they go into depression. They cannot speak about it. Some of them are married women. And when they go back home, they don't want to speak on what happened to them. And they become so depressed. Some of them get infected with HIV and AIDS. Some of them even die. And you know, people just look at them dying, these things eat into them, and nobody speaks about them. Mr. Speaker, I think it's about time that we spoke about these things. And it's about time that also women are not ashamed of speaking about these things because they are happening everywhere. And the sad thing is that when it happens, nobody really, they just criminalize women. It looks like they start asking you, like, how are you dressed? My dress is my choice. And Mr. Speaker, the way I dress should not actually be a way that I'm judged on how I'm treated sexually. These men should also know that these women are not supposed to dress in a certain way, because what you believe in is not what I believe in. We are all brought up differently, we all dress differently, and you're supposed to treat a woman with dignity and with respect, regardless of how they wear, what they are doing. It is just something that we need to put into a stop, that women are not justified by the society on what they wear or how they walk or how they talk. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to add my voice to this. And I asked my sister Kemei not to stop here. Let us follow this one and make sure that these people, regardless of their influence, regardless of who they are brought into books, and for once, let these people be punished so that the rest of the people can know that these things are punishable, because we are glorifying these things. Mr. Speaker, I know that you said earlier that you are not talking about the videos that are going viral, but I think it's also a form of sexual harassment to women. And these things should be brought into a stop, Mr. Speaker. Cyberbullying has led women into depression. They has led their children into leaving school because of shaming by fellow students. It has broken families, Mr. Speaker. And it does not take only a woman to do this act. It takes two people that has consented to this thing. And I don't know, when every time it comes out, the woman is demonized, and the woman is facing all these things, the forms of discrimination. And so, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that we will follow.
Member for Kangema. Member for Kangema.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I contributed on the issue.
Member for Kaiti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this issue, this matter, which is a very important matter. And before I hear my voice, I want to congratulate the committee, which has done a good research, and they have given a good report. And I also want to congratulate Honorable Beatrice, and want to tell her that this is the way to go, and don't stop it at this stage, because we need to see people getting their rights. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that this thing happening in the TSA in Kericho, it's a very bad thing. And it's happening in Kericho, but it's also happening in other areas. And Kericho should be, in this TA state, it should act as a test for the other institutions who are doing the same things, who are harassing women. And Mr. Speaker, I have a wife in the house, and I have daughters in the house. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this report, because we have women, and the women need to be protected, Mr. Speaker. Some of these women, they are vulnerable, and they do this because they want to secure jobs. They are told, if you don't do this, you are going to lose your job. And this is the high time, as members of parliament, we need to stand with the women in our country and support them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, others are doing this to get school fees. Others are doing due to poverty levels, Mr. Speaker. And if we cannot stand with our women, support them, Mr. Speaker, this is going to happen in our country, and it's going to make many people, many girls, to suffer on the hands of these people, Mr. Speaker. Kericho TA said, I think this organization should be working, supporting the community around, giving them support to change their living standard. Instead of doing that, Mr. Speaker, we are getting such a reports whereby they are harassing women, whereby they are sexual harassment, Mr. Speaker, is very dangerous and very bad, because it leads even to unexpected pregnancy, Mr. Speaker. And our young girls, we are working hard as legislators to pay school fees for our girls, to go to school, to get good degrees, and if they went after the school, they get good jobs, Mr. Speaker. But it's shameful, Mr. Speaker, if someone can work hard and after getting a job, be forced to do such an act, Mr. Speaker. I think harsh punishments should be enforced to those people who are doing this nonsense, Mr. Speaker. Because if we don't stand as a country, family, and change our laws, Mr. Speaker, to give harsh punishments, this trade will continue, and it will happen to our daughters and our generation, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, this is the time we need to stand with our other Kenyans who are suffering on the hands of people who cannot even think, who are intimidating them, which is very bad, Mr. Speaker. And I think I support it because tomorrow it's my daughter who will land in the hands of such a people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this kind of acts, sometimes it even can lead to depression to our girls, Mr. Speaker. Because there are young people who are going to seek job, and after getting a job, they are harassed, they can't even, and because of fear, they end into depression, Mr. Speaker. And I think it is the high time to make sure that this thing will not happen in another organization, Mr. Speaker. It can also lead to early marriages because girls are harassed and they get depressed and they forget themselves and they end up in being married when they are not prepared, Mr. Speaker. So I think I want to support the committee, and I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, these are bad fights. And we need to show the world that we want to protect our women, Mr. Speaker. And if a report like this, as our members of parliament, we get such a report, we need to follow it up to the end, and we need to make sure that those who are doing such nonsense are brought to the books and get punished. Because if we wait to do that, tomorrow it will happen in other institutions, Mr. Speaker. It can also lead to unwanted pregnancies and family infidelities. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the report, and I want to conclude.
Lastly, member for Kisumu West.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. As I stand here, I speak as the immediate former vice chairperson of KEWOPA. I also speak as a mother, and I speak as a woman. I just want to tell the Honorable Woman Representative of Kericho County that what she has done goes slightly beyond her mandate, but what she has done is a favor to the women of this country. As a woman representative, you are actually a watchdog of all the vulnerable members of this society. And I want to congratulate her and thank her for being bold enough to bring this discussion to the floor of this House. Mr. Speaker, what the Honorable Member has done is actually given an opportunity to many, many women, and she's opened the lid of what thousands of women go through in this country, regardless of what ages they are. Young teenage girls, young ladies, women of my age, older women than me, married women, all face this same issue, except that it's in different institutions and different situations. Mr. Speaker, what happens to women in this country is almost beginning to discourage young girls from even furthering their education. We know that the government has put in a lot of effort in terms of affirmative action to help bring up the girl child so that she can compete on equal terms or equal footing with the boy child. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, the experience that many girls are going through is making them think that they really do not have to struggle so hard to acquire education, because whether you are educated or not, there is only one question you get asked at the time that you seek employment or at the time that you wish to continue in the employment that you might be engaged in: sex. Mr. Speaker, the most unfortunate thing about that is that the woman or the girl always ends up paying the price. She will either get infected or she will end up getting a pregnancy that she didn't plan to get. And many times, sometimes the girl does not get the job that she tried to give sex for because the person who was asking her for sex was just not sincere. Mr. Speaker, I think the committee should have even gone further and demanded or instructed that the owners of those companies must actually even suffer more than the committee says, because it doesn't matter if you subcontract any job within your company. The buck stops with you
You are the final say and the final owner of that company. And if anything foul as such as this is happening within your company, you take the blame for it. Mr. Speaker, I think of Sex for Fish in Homa Bay County or the Lake region, where women, in order not to stay hungry or in order just to be able to fend for their children, have to sell sex or have to sell their bodies in order to keep alive. Mr. Speaker, this is why I'm saying that we need to have more severe punishment so that we can deter people who think that they can sell or they can demand sex from young girls or young women for favors or for employment or for anything like parts, anything like food. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the committee for going into detail and finding exactly what goes on in those two companies. And this, like I've said, is an eye-opener to many, many companies in this country because the same experience or the same things are happening in those companies. Mr. Speaker, I support the report. And once again, I want to thank the honorable member for being bold enough and bringing this to the fore and the floor of the government, of the National Assembly. Thank you, honorable member. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I support the report. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable members, the question on the proposed amendment by the Honorable Beatrice Kemei will be put during the next time when this motion is considered. Also, the mover of the motion will be asked to reply during the time when the motion is next slotted for consideration on the floor of the House. Next order.
Order number 10. Motion. General debate on the proposal to Parliament to consider amending the Constitution and the standing orders.
There being no interest on this, I call upon the next order.
Order number 11. The Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendments Bill, National Assembly Bill number 60 of 2022, second reading.
This order is deferred to the next time is slated for obvious reasons. I will not say anything more than that. It will be discussed next time when the majority leaders are available in the House. Honorable members, time now being 6:28, this House stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 25th of April, 2023 at 2:30.